folks, today I want to have a chat about jumping up, and it really is a problem for many dog owners. Of course, it's absolutely fine when they're little tiny puppies and they jump up and people go, yeah, oh, that is so cute, and they stroke them and they love them and everything, and then they grow into big, huge, hairy dogs and they're muddy and they're jumping up on people's designer clothes. I really don't like it. Really doesn't go down well at all. But even small dogs, you know, they've got sharp claws. And I looked after my little old mum for years, as I was her full-time carer. And I couldn't have all my big German Shepherds and my Bull Terriers clawing her and jumping up. You know, she was on warfarin, and her little hands, her little legs, her skin was so thin, you know, fragile. And you just can't even have this clawing. So I don't even really like teaching them to give the paw, because that can very often become a claw of somebody's legs. So, you know, be careful what you teach your dogs or you allow your dogs to do, because it can easily develop into a problem. And this is where this can really cause owners a nightmare. Now, you know, when I went out to dogs, it was nearly always one of the problems of the dog jumping up. And the difference is that although I love dogs, is that I'm not emotionally attached to the dogs I went out to. You know, I love dogs in general. I don't, you know, that dog, I don't know it. It doesn't mean anything to me as such, except for that I've got to try and solve the problems. But all the glad eyes and the sad eyes and the, oh, you know, that didn't work on me, because I had zero tolerance from the minute I walked in. My back was straight, my head was up, my expressions, my body. So when I say zero tolerance, I don't mean in a harsh, critical, nasty way. I just mean my body language says to the dog, I don't like that. Just don't do that. I don't like it. Okay? So that is what I'm suggesting that you try and achieve, is this, I don't like this, and let your body language talk to the dog. Because if you think it hard enough, your body language will come out of every pore of your body. So your body language will relate to the dog and the dog will feel it. I'm convinced of it. Okay? So the easiest way for me to explain how I would work is to give you an example of a dog I went out to. And normally, as I approach the dog, as I walk in the front door, and I have all my treats and everything, and I have, you know, I have the boxes, the insulated boxes of lovely warm treats, and I've got a load in my pocket. Of course the dog is going to jump up on me. You know, if it's got a jumping up problem, then it's going to jump up on me. So I just want to try and figure out, why does a dog jump up? You know, I'm telling you, I don't know. But when I had puppies around with my big dogs, what you will notice is that puppies always lick around the faces of other dogs. You know, especially, it's like an appeasement, you know, please be nice to me, be nice to me. And I'm guessing that in the wild, when the dogs would come back, or the wolves or whatever come back from hunting, they would regurgitate their food when the puppies, the young, you know, cubs or pups or whatever, would lick around their faces. And so they'd come back with hunting, and of course they didn't have any carrier bags and everything, so they kept all their food in their tummy, and it was a sort of sign, feed me, I love you, I love you. Now, I could be talking the biggest load of rubbish ever, but dogs do love licking around faces. And could it be that they're trying to get to our faces to appease us? Now, some dogs, it will just be exuberance and happiness. Woo, yeah, lovely, love you, you've just come in the door, or somebody's, you know, make a big fuss of me. Or it could be that the dog is anxious and stressed and jumping up and going, please, please, especially if they've been told off a lot. So if you just imagine that you're in, let's say, a strange country, and you've been thrown into this place where you don't understand the language and you don't know the people, and then there's people cuddling you and being nice to you, and then the next minute they're shouting at you, get down, get down. You know? So you can imagine how stressed, I'd get very stressed. So it's just, just think about these things. Try and work out, put down in the comments what you, am I talking rubbish? I don't know. Anyway, it's irrelevant really, because what we need to do is solve the problem, don't we? So the case that I went out to, as I walked in, I normally would charge the clicker. So as soon as I go in, I click treat, click treat, click treat, click treat. So, I have the clicker and I click treat, click treat, click treat, so that the dog understands that click means the trigger. But in this case, I couldn't do that because this dog was bonkers. I'm telling you, it is the worst case, and that is why I'm reliving it with you. Is that the dog jumped up non-stop, biting me and barking, 4 feet off the ground, dong, 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 biting me, barking, biting me, barking. But I always say to the owners, when I walk in, I don't want you to say anything to the dog. I don't want you to correct it or shout at it or tell it not to jump up. I want to see what the dog does the minute I walk in, so that I can see the problem. So anyway, this dog was, I'm like one of those cartoon people, where you get all the shreds of clothes. I am exaggerating a bit, but you get the idea. It was ripping my clothes. So I said to her, can you put the kettle on? Let's have a cup of tea. So I went in and I stood and talked to her while this dog was jumping up and biting me. It was all 4 feet off the ground. It was quite a small dog. And of course it was catching me, on my skin as well, my fingers and everything else. So I was trying to keep my hands out of the way in the meantime. So the poor lady, she was looking at me and she said, after about 10 minutes or so, she said, are you going to do anything about this dog? And I could see her face. She was like looking as if to say, I've got this trainer and she's just standing having a cup of tea, she's not doing anything. Is this a mistake? So anyway, I just said to her, I am dealing with this. Don't worry, I'm dealing with this and I will sort this out. She said, I'm worried about the neighbours because the dog's not stopped barking for the last 10 minutes or quarter of an hour. I said, my vehicle's outside with dog trainer written all over it. They'll get the idea and I'll speak to them afterwards if I have to. So anyway, the dog kept jumping up and jumping up and jumping up, and I just totally ignored it. So I stood talking to her with my arms folded, and I didn't even look at the dog. I didn't acknowledge it was there. And it was jumping up and it's still biting me and ripping my clothes, and I didn't. Eventually the dog has to tire. It has to. It can't keep doing that. And that's what I was waiting for. So the second the dog got tired, when its 4 feet hit the ground and stayed there just for a second or two, that's what I was waiting for. And that second, well done, clever dog, well done, you're so clever. Jumping up, I knew that was going to happen. Of course it was going to start again. So I just waited and waited and waited. And eventually the dog's 4 feet on the ground. Well done, click and treat, lovely, yes, clever dog. So it got all of the attention and the response from me and the big smiley face when it stopped jumping up. It took me, now I don't know, it seemed like forever, but it was at least half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, when this dog finally stopped jumping up completely. And it never jumped up on me again for the whole session, the whole time I was there. And I am there for a long time when I go out. I would be out for maybe 4 or 5 hours in some cases. And of course I'm not working with the dog all that time. I let the dog rest and then I explain to the owners and then I work with the dog again. It's got to have a little break and a little toilet break, go out and play and everything like that. We have a little game, let it rest. Because it's a lot of information these dogs have got to take in in a relatively short time, of 4 or 5 hours is quite a short time, because the dog might be a year old and it's never met this kind of work, if you like, this teaching. So eventually this dog did stop jumping up, but of course it would all be wasted if the family came home from school or work or been out shopping or whatever, and as they walk in they go, "Oh, lovely, well done, hello, say hello, good dog." Then all my work is finished, okay? But I could almost guarantee that I could walk into that house a month later and the dog might jump up once, and then you can see it thinking, going, uh-oh, okay, feet on the ground. So it does depend on the person as well. You know, you may have a dog that's jumping up on one person because it can get away with it and not on another. So it's got to be everybody singing by the same hymn sheet. Everybody has to do the same. Otherwise, one person is just wasting their time trying to correct it, because then everybody that comes in, it will chance its arm and see if it will get away with it. It will know it won't get away with it with that person, but it will try it on somebody else. So, okay, 0 tolerance. The dog must not jump up from the time they're puppies. They're not allowed to jump up. You can, of course, teach them to put their paws up onto something at a later stage. You know, that is much, much later. You can use that as an exercise to teach the dog. But as a general rule, the dog must not touch your body with its feet, its claws. That's a general rule. Okay. And it's the same with jumping up on sofas. And, you know, you've got to make your rules and decide what your rules of the house are. Now, I know that what you're going to say is, yeah, but my dog is all right in the house, but every time it sees, I can do all of that in the house, but every time it sees a stranger, it's going to love it and jump up on it or whatever, you know. So I have a exercise that I used to do as part of my program that I went out, and I'll see if I can stand up and sort of explain it. Right. So what you want to try and get is some of your friends, and eventually maybe some strangers that might be able to help you, or neighbours, you know, people that the dog doesn't know very well. And you just say to them, look, I'm trying to train my dog not to jump up, and I wonder, could I have a few minutes of your time just to help me? And of course, you do want a person that loves dogs, not someone that's terrified of them. So what I used to do is I would put the dog on a lead, and on a harness and on a lead, and I would walk up to the person. So let's say you're the person that is the stranger, okay? So I would have the dog on a lead and I would have my clicker and my treats. So I would walk up to the person and pretend that I didn't know them or whatever, and chat to them. So I'm saying, hello, how are you? Get them to chat as if we've just met, we haven't seen each other for years or whatever, just have a conversation. The dog jumps up. As soon as the dog jumps up, you turn and walk away with the dog. And then you walk away about 10 or 15 foot away, you turn around, you walk back to the person, start again. Hello, chatty, 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 chatty. How are you? That's lovely. If the dog jumps up, the person doesn't look at the dog. You're talking to each other. The dog jumps up, you just turn away. Don't yank it, just turn away, walk away with the dog. You don't say anything. You don't go, ah, or anything. You just walk away. Okay? Turn around, walk back to the person. This might take 15 or 20 goes. But when the dog doesn't jump up at the person, you click, you treat, good dog. The person strokes the dog. Okay, so the dog gets rewarded for having its feet on the ground. It wants attention, it wants strokes, it wants cuddles or whatever, and it gets nothing until its feet are on the ground. So every time it jumps up, you walk away, you turn around, you come back, The dog jumps up, you turn around, you walk away, you come back. You just keep doing it until the dog's feet are on the ground. And then you click and you treat, well done. And the person then strokes the dog. And you just keep trying to get as many people doing that as possible. You know, you need 100 friends or strangers, because if the dog learns that every time it jumps up, it is taken away and gets nothing. Only when its feet are on the ground does it get the reward it wants, and it gets the click and the treat and the stroke. Okay, so my next video that I'm going to do in a minute will be about the whistle game. I'll see you then. Bye.